Hi, welcome to another episode of Inquiring Minds. I'm Steve Harper, and with me is my amazing co-host, Donna Carlin. How are you doing today, Donna?
I'm great, thank you very much. I am so looking forward to today because I want to hear your wisdom around our topics.
Oh, well, I hope I have some. So
Yes,
what are
you
we talking about?
triple hockey puck, here we go. Um, so I had this conversation with a client just the other day. Confidence has no competition.
Ooh,
You're as much as somebody as anybody. I mean, just those two statements are incredibly powerful, especially for those who minimize their impact, who keep saying, "Oh, no, it's not a big thing," when
yep.
you compliment them, all that kind of stuff. So I'm asking people to look beyond, not backwards. Okay, so looking beyond, how are you right now, and how are you going to continue to grow and become more of who you are? Because remember to stand tall, look others in the eye, and be all of who you are all the time.
Yep.
And I think this is an important topic for us to discuss because we live in such an incredibly competitive world. Often the humble people tend to minimize their impact, their presence, and talk down their greatness.
Yeah.
And I'm
We've
going
talked
to
about that
invite,
before. Yeah.
yeah, and I'm going to invite you all, not even in jest, to stop doing that, talking yourself down or throwing in the caveats or it's no big deal or, this one's smarter than me, all that kind of stuff, and step into your greatness. What do you need to do in order for that to happen?
So I'm curious, as it pertains to that, how do you perceive that as it ties to confidence?
When you're confident, that means that you're secure in yourself. There's
Yep.
no competition. You're not competing against someone else when you walk in with confidence. That's not the first thought in your mind. The first thought in your mind is, I know what I stand for. I know what I'm going to contribute. Let's go.
Yep.
You don't take the time to start saying, do I measure up? Am I as good as the other people in the room? That doesn't happen. Their competition does not exist when you walk in with confidence.
Right. When you don't have that confidence, that's where those other statements start to creep in, those self-doubts. And I think that a lot of people probably face that in their everyday life, right? Especially in the
Yeah.
work that they do. You run into a situation where you're trying to evaluate yourself in comparison to the other people in the room, and it is a slippery slope because the minute you start going down there, you start picking yourself apart and start having criticisms. Even if it's just the internal dialogue, I'm not as good as this person. I don't have as much education or experience as they do. And next thing you know, you're completely off your game, right? So it is a really valuable topic to talk about because I think people need to catch themselves in the moment when these things start to occur and then need to have some ideas and strategies to how to stop that so that they can step, like you said, back into their power and into their confidence because they are there for a reason and they have something to contribute that's unique and valuable that somebody else doesn't have, right? They bring their own unique experiences, their own perspectives, and that is necessary and needed in those environments. So I'm curious when your client that brought this up, were they struggling with kind of a crisis of confidence? Is part of the reason why you started discussing this, or a little background about what they might have been going through would be great.
So I will answer that question. And to start it off, one of the other questions I asked is, who are you in presence, not paper?
Hmm.
Because I know people who have degrees to here, okay, like to the top of their heads, and continue to go for training and certificates and certifications and degrees and everything else. Who are they though? And what is their presence? What are they doing with all this learning rather than, what's the word for it? Lord it over you. One of my clients was dealing with an incredibly toxic team. And that team did everything in their power to try to demolish their boss. It was
Mm.
unbelievable to watch this. And I looked I looked at her and I said, "Who are you?" It's not about, you know, the fact that two people on your team have 14 certificates in X, Y, and Z, or Z, if there are Canadians on the call. Um, what it's about is, who are you? Are you collectively successful? And are you doing everything in your power to support each other so you're all successful and you don't just walk on somebody's head to you know, tamp them down in order for you to be bigger and better? And it's really hard when a team of really immature, unbelievably immature, incredibly talented but immature people do their darndest to just make nothing out of you. And after a while, it's really hard to put up with that kind of garbage. So in the first, you know,
Mm.
question I had was, who do you know that's incredibly confident? And do you think it even occurs to them in the moment what other people think of them? Because they're going in with confidence. They know it has to get done. They know all the ducks to align in a row in order to get it done. And this is just noise. This is this terribly destructive noise. And it was this eye opener for her. This is happening way too often in multiple organizations that I'm working in. And to help them recapture their confidence and look the people in the eye. Remember, I said,
Hmm.
stand tall, look them straight in the eye, and go, you're either going to get this done or step aside. That's it. And when that happens, there's superconductivity. You remove all the roadblocks, and away you go. You need to step into that presence, that leadership presence, in order for that to happen and get rid of all this noise.
Yeah. Yeah, I could see in a leadership role and the challenge that, sort of just in the situation that you've outlined, the lack of confidence or any potential crack in the confidence, I should say, ends up becoming sort of the opportunity for them to pounce, and that's why they feel empowered or emboldened to respond and react the way that they are. And so for leaders or any individual out there that is sort of given that power away at the very onset and is trying to regain it back, there all the stories that you tell yourself about what I need to do in order to regain that trust or find that level of respect or get this relationship sort of back on track ends up almost in at least in my perspective ends up looking to the that individual as the one having to do all the work. And what I liked about what you said is, no, at the end of the day, coming at it from a position of authority and expressing what exactly needs to happen next, looking them in the eye, being direct, not sharing the story or trying to sell them on why they need to do it or why they need to, accomplish the mission at hand or finish the project the way you want it done. This is the way it is, and this is how it is. We're not going to have a discussion about it, and how they respond and react in the moment doesn't really matter because you don't give them the space to complain or to bellyache about it or to create the dialogue, which then undermines the confidence factor. So I really like that because I do think that we, especially when I come at it from my perspective, I'm often I'm too accommodating and I try to be too good to make sure people are always heard and understood, and that's an important aspect of leadership. But it can also be taken advantage of, and it can also be leveraged for someone else's agenda and doesn't necessarily serve your own. And so I think it's really important for people that really struggle with conflict to recognize what you're saying is you're not putting the conflict out there. You're actually just saying this is the way it is, or step aside and someone else will be doing that job. But I'm not going to have a discussion about it any longer. And just by the extension of doing that, turning around and walking away from it, you are reassuming that power and potentially rebuilding that confidence. And at least now setting a new set of standards in terms of how you're going to be treated by these people.
And it happens in your everyday life, not only in work. I have had situations where somebody feels that they're entitled to tell me how to treat somebody else and whether or not they're first in line, and they need to be treated better than
Yeah.
somebody else. And if I don't do everything that they want me to do, they're going to just cut me off and not even have a conversation with me to rectify whatever's going on. And it occurs to me in situations like that how am I going to put this that it doesn't sound crass, because I don't mean it to sound crass. I Nobody has is entitled to tell me how to treat somebody else.
Yeah.
Nobody is entitled to tell me who should be in my life and how I honor them in my life. Nobody. If I'm mistreating you and you have data to tell me that I've mistreated you in some way, we will discuss it, get beyond it, and figure a way forward. If you have sour grapes because I happen to speak to somebody 3 minutes longer than I spoke to you, that kind of thing, and you think that you're entitled to tell me, no, don't do that, I take precedence, I could tell you how long you're going to be in my life.
Hmm.
Because nobody has the right to tell me how to live my life and what to do from my point of view. How somebody else takes something, their business. There's no question. The same thing here. If you're not confident in relationship, you're going to constantly try to be what somebody else demands of you, and you lose yourself.
Yeah.
Then you beat yourself up because you've lost yourself and you don't even know what you stand for anymore. And now what? You don't even know how to approach new people in case they don't like you at the get-go. Just be yourself and you will attract people who like you as you are. It's and that's the
Or not, but
confidence.
they might respect you, right? They don't have to like
Exactly
you, but
right.
they have to respect you.
It's in a workplace for sure.
Yep.
For sure. There's no question. I am blessed that my family and my friends, who are my family by choice, they accept me for all of who I am.
Hmm.
And if I tick them off in some way, shape, or form, they'll tell me, we'll talk about it, and we'll get beyond it and probably laugh a lot in the midst of doing that. If you're going to keep a ledger of everything that you might have misconstrued or thought I said or didn't do, to please you, and then just dump it on me 2 years later, not going to have it. And the same thing happens in the workplace. You have an issue with somebody, bring it up respectfully. Ask them to help you understand where the conflict started in the first place. Listen actively and openly. Share your point of view. And then co-create something that the two of you could not only live with, but grow because of.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I like that. I think when you're talking about the confidence piece, though, I think that, having a firm understanding of who you are when you're, in these situations, when you're experiencing these opportunities to do it differently and to regain and refine your confidence, I think it's a really useful exercise for our audience to go back and think really, honestly about how these situations have played out for themselves and how much power they are giving away because they're either trying to be too accommodating, they're trying to be too nice, they're trying to be something that they're not in that moment. I'm thinking about a particular client that I'm working with currently that has a younger generation of workforce, and he has very specific, things he wants to accomplish with the business, but he takes away all his power by, here's my mission, here's what we're doing, here's the time frame in which we're going to get it accomplished, and then he finishes with, is that okay? and, and then opens it up to conversation because he's like, well, this is this workforce is sensitive. Like, well, yeah, you're sensitive to making payroll as well. You're sensitive to getting money in the bank so that you can provide jobs and opportunities for the people that work here. And you're also sensitive to the fact that you're the one thinking about the vision of the company and where it needs to go and what it needs to do. And uh, giving them almost equal say in whether they want to do the project or not is counterintuitive to making progress. And it's not about feelings, it's about progress. And it's about working towards the goal. If you've stated it, you're clear, there's a firm understanding of what, the end game is, you don't really need to justify it because you're already by position in a role to be able to set that standard, to set that strategy, to set that goal and project deadline. And it was just kind of mind blowing to him because he's had this perpetual door of people coming and going and leaving, and almost every one of them is because they get upset with something that is happening, and they fly off the handle because it hurt their feelings, or feel they feel this sense of entitlement that they weren't consulted on something. And at the end of the day, you want to try and create a good work environment. You want to make sure people feel heard and understood.
Yeah.
But there's also a limit, and there's also a point where you have to stand up for what you know is right. You have to be committed to your direction, and find that level of confidence. And if you struggle in that situation, you just don't open it up for debate. You don't open it up for discussion. And at the end of the day, you're the one that's that is at the biggest risk for not delivering because you own the company. So I just find this super interesting because it is a challenge for a lot of people, especially as they work with different types of generations of teams. There's different age and experience levels. It can be difficult and challenging for us, whether it's in our work environment or even our personal relationships. We have to be willing to step up and sort of show people how we now expect to be treated, and how we plan to handle, some of these things as they occur. And I think this was a really interesting topic.
What occurs to me with what happened with your client, is that okay? Uh, if you would turn it around and say, this is what I want to achieve, and you're the perfect people to help me get there.
Yep.
And I'd love to hear from you how your contribution will help us achieve this. And we're going to celebrate big time when it happens.
Yeah.
Totally different
It
conversation.
is. Yeah. You're bringing them on the same side of the desk in a co-creating collaboration kind of approach. There's definite value in that because you're showing them the respect that they deserve, but you're also exhibiting confidence in that they can get the job done, and that you put your trust and faith in them delivering on it. So I think that's a really good that's a good approach as well.
I remember speaking at a conference a long time ago, and this young woman from the organization came up to me and said, "You need to be on Twitter." I said I was on Twitter for about 10 minutes. I hate Twitter. I'm not going on Twitter. And she said, 10 minutes. I said, it just was not a great experience for me. And it's so much work. It really is. You have to be always on. And so she said, I need you on Twitter. I want to learn from you. So I said to her, okay, you could learn from me another way. She says, how about if I mentor you? And she was, less than half my age. And I said to her, I would love that. Show me how to use it in a way that's not going to drive me crazy. I'm all in.
Yep.
And I am so open to learning. And that's what she did. She literally mentored me for a while until I would not, cancel my account for the second time. Not that I'm on there that much, but, seriously, the conversation, she says, nobody's ever said that. Like nobody with your level of experience and your age group sort of thing has ever said, well, teach me. It's always the
Yeah.
other way around. I'm going to show you what to do. I have all the experience. And I said, no, you're the one who's savvy with this. I would love to learn from you because you're going to tell me how you learn through Twitter. Because that's not how I learn. That's how you and a lot of people in your generation do learn
Yeah.
and get information. Teach me that. I need to know how to connect with your generation better on an even playing field. And we had the greatest conversations every week. It was phenomenal.
That's
Um,
great.
yeah, and it gave her confidence to approach other people and ask for what she wanted. She says, I've never approached a senior leader in my organization who I work with, right? The top level people in organizations. And she says, I just watch you walk over to them and talk to them like they're human beings. I go, they are human beings. I hate to
Yeah.
tell you.
Yeah.
They're just as human as you are. You need to connect to them on their level and give as well as get.
Yep.
It
Yeah.
was very cool.
That's
Really, really cool.
awesome. That's awesome. Well, I would be definitely curious as to what our audience took away from this topic, and what
Excuse
challenges
me.
maybe they've experienced in finding that level of confidence so that they can put that forward. And what would be the best way for our audience members to share their thoughts on this particular episode, or even maybe topics that are you know kind of burning in their own lives and their minds about what they'd like us to cover in the future.
Best way to engage in conversation is in our Facebook group, Inquiring Minds with Donna Carlin and Steve Harper. Same thing with our YouTube. You're welcome to comment on there and we'll answer you. Start a conversation in our Facebook group, because there, people write us asking for more information or how it resonated with them and what they did with it, and if they started their own conversations around some of the topics. It's so cool.
It
And we're
is,
getting
yeah.
private messages from people also sharing a little bit more personal information. Or, on the street, it's really cool. Some of my neighbors will stop me and say, "Oh, that last podcast was unbelievable." So it's really cool. They get to see a side of me through our conversations. Not to mention, is that the Steve Harper? I go, yeah, it's the Steve Harper from Austin, Texas. Oh, okay, that's Steve Harper. It's really funny. Um, you're famous because I'm telling everybody that you're better than our previous prime minister. So there you go. It's it's a great way for you to let us know who you are and how this is impacting you, and we would really love to hear from you.
Absolutely. Well, we are definitely grateful. However, you found this particular episode and listened to this show, whether you're listening through the podcast platforms or you're finding us on YouTube or Facebook, we are grateful that you're here. We hope these conversations will stimulate some really interesting opportunities for you to have other conversations out there in your world. But we'll be back again very soon with another episode of Inquiring Minds. But until then, Donna, have a great day.
You too.